smoked salmon Benedict. So I pulled the bread and asparagus off of the grill pan. The bread is sourdough, sliced and grilled with a little bit of butter. And then I tossed the asparagus and butter too, and I grilled it. So that's gonna just hang out until the finished dish is ready to assemble. So this is eggs Benedict with smoked salmon, and I need to poach the eggs. So I have a simmering pan of water, and it's just to the bubbling stage, and you can see that I'm creating basically a cyclone or tornado in the water, going a little bit faster and faster. And then as soon as it really starts to go, I'm gonna drop in 4 eggs. I'm gonna try to drop them in one at a time. There's 1, 2, 3, oh, 3, 4. That's okay. So then you can see, Alex, can you get in here and see this? You see how the whites are kind of starting to fold in around the yolks, and that's exactly what you want to happen. So I'm gonna get in here and just kind of make sure they're separate eggs that are poaching, not just one big egg with 4 yolks. That's happened to me before. So while the eggs are poaching, I'm gonna get started on the hollandaise sauce, and that's more egg yolks. This is a very egg yolky dish. And then I've got some lemon juice, and it goes in along with the zest from the same lemon. And I'm gonna give this a little bit of a buzz. Oh, I forgot to drop vinegar into the water. Oh my gosh. Tablespoon of vinegar in the water. I forgot to do it ahead of time. I'm just gonna do it now for fun. But it really helps kind of get those egg whites to kind of stick to the egg yolks. Okay, I'm gonna add some salt and pepper into the blender. This is kind of a magical sauce, hollandaise. To me, it's the most delicious sauce in the world.
Same.
Okay, now the secret is, Alex, look, I have sizzling melted butter in a little saucepan, and I'm gonna turn on the blender and drizzle this in slowly, and it's gonna emulsify and turn this into a sauce. So before I check the sauce, I'm actually gonna come back to the poached eggs because I don't want those to go too far. And look at this, Alex. Look at this beautiful poached egg.
That looks perfect.
It really does. I'm gonna put them on paper towels just to drain the excess water. And you kind of want to pull out a poached egg right before you think it's done, because it's gonna continue to kind of cook the yolk even after you take it out. So you don't want to have that yolk turn into a dry yellow yolk. Look at these, they're so pretty. Okay, so I'm gonna add some herbs. I have parsley, I've got fresh dill, and some fresh chives. And I actually don't want to completely pulverize and grind up the herbs. I want them to stay in little flecks. So, okay, and then that little pulse should have done the trick. So let me just take a look and see. Can you see that? Is it thick?
Oh, it's really thick.
Oh my gosh. I love hollandaise sauce so much. So now it's time to assemble, and I'm just gonna use one of these plates. So I'm gonna start with a piece of the grilled bread, and then I've got some beautiful smoked salmon. You like smoked salmon?
I do.
I'll get one of these beautiful, I can just use my fingers, we're family. Beautiful poached eggs. Okay, now I'm gonna grab the asparagus, and you can put it on the Benedict. I'm just gonna put it to the side rather than try to do a balancing act. Can you see? I just think the green asparagus is such a beautiful kind of accompaniment for the salmon and the hollandaise. Okay, you ready?
I'm ready.
This is where the rubber meets the road right here. It's gorgeous green. It's very, very thick. If it gets too thick, you can always thin it out with a little bit of hot water, but I think it's actually just perfect. How gorgeous is this? I mean,
beautiful.
Oh, and then I forgot, I saved some little chive pieces, so I'll just kind of do a little crisscross. And then a little tiny sprinkling of pepper is always beautiful. How perfect is this for the holidays? Breakfast, brunch, lunch, midnight snack. Well, I'm going from savory to sweet. French toast is a brunch favorite, but one challenging thing about it is standing over the stove and making individual pieces for your guests, especially when you have a few guests. So that's when French toast casserole is a lifesaver, and I am gonna make a lemon blueberry version that is out of this world good. Everyone loves it, from kids to big kids. I'm just adding things to the pitcher to make the custard. And it's eggs, mascarpone, whole milk, brown sugar, and a generous amount of vanilla, and then lemon zest, which just really brightens and makes the whole thing taste super fresh. Now, instead of going in with a whisk, I'm gonna use an immersion blender because it's going to make everything really, really smooth. This is not gonna take long at all, and it really mixes in the mascarpone with the eggs really, really well. And it's just fun to use. I love an immersion blender. All right, that is the custard. It smells so good. So I sliced a bunch of slices of potato bread in half, and I just shingled the slices in the baking dish. And it's just so easy to do it that way. You could use sourdough bread, you could use ciabatta. Honestly, the great thing about French toast casserole is you can use leftover bread, so you could do a mix, lots and lots of options. So I'm pouring this just so it goes over every little surface of the bread. I don't want there to be any dry bread at all. Now for the blueberries, I am using frozen blueberries, which are amazing. You can use fresh, and of course you can go the blackberry route, raspberries, anything goes. So at this point, if I were making this ahead of time, I would cover it with plastic wrap and put it in the fridge overnight, and then just get up in the morning and stick it in the oven. But I am gonna press on, and I'm gonna put this in the oven for 45 minutes at 350, and then I'll make a sweet, delicious glaze. The French toast is almost ready, so I am gonna make this delicious and very simple lemon glaze to go over the top once it comes out. It kind of takes the place of the syrup, but you are more than welcome to add syrup as well. You can also add butter if you like. One thing I'm not gonna do is judge what you do with your French toast casserole, because I've probably done it too. All right, basically you just wanna add lemon juice to powdered sugar, and it's a process because you wanna get it to a drizzle consistency. Okay, that looks like the perfect glaze right there. So I'm gonna grab the casserole out of the oven. It smells good. It smells like brunch. Ooh, boy, that looks delicious. I love how this looks with those shingled slices of bread. And look at the little crusty points that are sticking up. It's just the way I like it. All right, time for the glaze. And I'm just gonna tip the bowl and just go back and forth. Oh my goodness. Okay, I wanna show you how I like to serve this. You can use a spoon and take out sort of rustic scoops, or you can be nice and tidy and just cut a big old rectangle. Look at this. That bread is so soft in there. So to garnish, I just like to do a little light sprinkling of powdered sugar. Oh my gosh, love that. And then these pretty little lemon slices just to make it look extra special. Lemon blueberry French toast, guys. How easy was that to put together? And if you put it in the fridge the night before, it makes your brunch morning that much easier. I have to try this. Oh, divine. Gosh, that tastes like it's from a nice little French bistro in Oklahoma. Now these are not gonna be any old pancakes. These are my perfect pancakes, And I have tweaked them recently and made them even more perfect. So I cannot wait to serve these to my favorite fella. So I'm making the dry ingredients first, and it's just flour, sugar. I added baking powder and also adding a little bit of baking soda and just a little bit of salt. And those are the dry ingredients. So I'll whisk to make sure they're all mixed together. And now for the wet ingredients. And this is mostly what I tweaked with my recipe. So I have regular milk, and I'm gonna add buttermilk. Now, a lot of pancake recipes are either milk or buttermilk. So I experimented a bit with using both, and I really, really loved the results. I'm gonna crack in an egg, and I think one of the most important ingredients to any pancake batter is plenty of vanilla. So this is a generous tablespoon. So I'll stir this mixture together. Okay, now the last thing to add to the wet ingredients is some melted salted butter, and I'll whisk as I add it. And now it's all about combining the wet ingredients with the dry ingredients. And you never want to stir pancake batter vigorously. Sometimes I see pancake batter being made with an electric mixer or a stand mixer and just whipping it. And I just think, oh no, don't do that. You don't want to overwork it, because the whole secret to pancakes is to make sure they're tender and fluffy. When it's almost mixed together, you just do a few big folds. Make sure you don't have any big clumps of flour. And then, this is the key. I have a lot of keys with this recipe. I'm gonna cover this with plastic wrap, and I'm gonna let it rest on the counter for 45 minutes before I cook the pancakes. That kind of helps the flour to hydrate, helps get rid of most of the lumps, and it also will just make the pancakes much more tender. It's hard to be patient, but I'm gonna try. The pancake batter has been resting. You can see the little bubbles throughout. Now here's a little trick I do, and it's totally optional. The batter's nice and thick like it is, and it'll make really fluffy pancakes. Lad tends to like pancakes that are a little bit on the thinner side, so I'm just gonna use a little bit of milk, and a little goes a long way. Usually about a tablespoon or two will get it just to the right consistency. And I think that is perfect. Okay, I've been heating the griddle, and I'm gonna smear it with some butter. Important first step. So I'm gonna drop the pancake batter with about a 1/3 cup measure. Not all the way full, but basically a 1/3 cup. And you can do whatever size you want. You can do little silver dollar pancakes or huge ones, whatever you like. All right, so I'm gonna watch it until the surface starts to bubble, and then it'll be time to flip them over. By the way, shh, look. Don't tell Lad. All right, time to flip. Oh, wow, really golden. Fortunately, the second side doesn't take as long as the first side, probably 45 more seconds, maybe 47. Good timing.
Hey.
Hi.
How's the pancakes?
Pancakes coming right up.
All right.
How are you?
Right, good timing on my part, huh?
This is pretty good. You just get to stop in and eat some pancakes, go on about your work.
It's the way life should be.
Is 4 gonna be enough?
Yeah.
Or do you want 3 and I'll have 1?
You can have 1.
Really?
That's fine. I'll let you have 1.
Well, I have a lot more batter here, and I got all the time in the world.
3 is probably all I need, to be honest with you.
So what are you guys doing today?
We're just gonna haul a few cows around from down here up to by 4 acre.
I can no longer say you and the cowboys because Paige is involved now. So,
I like it.
okay, you ready?
Yep, I'm ready.
How's that plate?
That's big. I like it. That's a good pancake plate.
Wait, how's that plate? Golly, that failed. Darn it.
You're not.
Gosh.
It never works.
It actually scared me a little bit when I saw
I don't know why
it.
you try.
It works a lot, actually.
It never works.
Oh, man. I hate it when my efforts are foiled.
I like it.
There you go. And I got warm pancake syrup. I don't know about you. I think these are pretty darn good.
Really good.
Also known as PDG.
Just really good's good.
No, PDG Perfect Pancakes by Ree Drummond. Copyright 2024. I'm gonna make a pie crust, and that'll serve as the crust for the tarts. This is just my standard crust. It has 3 cups of all-purpose flour, a teaspoon of salt, and I added 2 tablespoons of sugar just to give the tarts a little extra sweetness. Okay, I mix that together. Now I have 2 sticks of butter. It's really cold. I'm gonna work it together until it basically looks like crumbs and pebbles mixed together. All right, this is all mixed together. So I have a beaten egg, pour it right in, and then ice water. I'll add about 5 tablespoons, a little splash of white distilled vinegar. Okay, now I'm gonna dump this mixture right onto the plastic wrap. It's gotta use your hands and press. Now I'll wrap it super tight in the plastic wrap, and I'll get it into the fridge. All right, I've got the dough. It's been chilling for an hour, and I'm going to roll out half of it. It's better to roll out half of the batch of dough at a time. That way you don't run the risk of the whole batch of dough getting too warm to work with. Now I'll get a little flour on top, and I'm gonna roll this out approximately to 18 inches by 9 inches. Okay, now I'll trim off the rough edges. Now I'm gonna cut this into 8 equal rectangles. So I'm gonna grab a jar of berry preserves. You can do strawberry, you can do chocolate hazelnut spread if you prefer. And then I'll grab a little bit of egg wash. This is just an egg that I beat with a little bit of water. And I'll brush it around the edge of the crust. And then pick up the top piece and put it on top. Use your fingers to make the edges meet. Now I'll get a fork and crimp the edges just like you would a pie crust. First, I'll put the 8 tarts onto parchment-lined baking sheets and get them into the oven to bake at 400 degrees for 16 minutes. When they're just barely golden, I'll take them out, leave them on the counter for 20 minutes, and then put them on 2 racks. The little tarts are baked and cooled. Now, even though there's sweet jam on the inside, they don't look very exciting right now. They're just kind of plain pastries. Well, I'm about to change that. I am making a bright purple glazed spoon over the top. I'm just sifting some powdered sugar. Now I'll add a tablespoon of the berry preserves, and then I have some milk, 2 tablespoons. Now I'm gonna add some bright purple food coloring. I'm using a toothpick. So I'll stir it around, and then I'll start by just adding a spoonful to the top to make them extra fun. For my girls, I'm gonna sprinkle on some little rainbow sprinkles. Okay, that's one. I've got a loaf of sourdough bread, and I'm just tearing it into pieces. All right, now I'll make the egg mixture. I have 8 eggs in a bowl, and I'm gonna add 2 cups of whole milk and just a half a cup of heavy cream. Just adds a little richness without making it too heavy. And then for a little sweetness, half a cup of sugar, and a 1/4 cup of packed brown sugar. The brown sugar just adds a nice richness to it. And the essential ingredient, a couple of tablespoons of vanilla extract. I love vanilla extract, can you tell? All right, now I'll just whisk this together. Oh, it smells like vanilla. And then I just pour this over the torn bread pieces. All right, yummy, yummy. Now I'm gonna make a topping for the baked French toast, and it's gonna give it a little extra sweetness, a little bit of crunch on top. I'm starting with half a cup of flour, and then I'll add half a cup of packed brown sugar. I'll add a teaspoon of cinnamon, and then some grated nutmeg. Oh, it smells so good, yummy. And then finally, a little bit of salt. Now I'll mix that together just a bit. And now I have a stick of very cold butter. And then I'll use my pastry cutter to just blend this together. You want the butter to be cold so the end result will sort of be little pebbles. All right, this is all combined. Now I'll just pour this mixture over the torn bread pieces. Now this needs to bake for about an hour at 350. Oh, this looks so good, and it smells even better. And I hear the voices of little girls. You're finally out of bed. I can't believe it. Good morning.
Oh, that looks so good.
Do y'all want some French toast?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
You guys hungry for breakfast?
Yeah.
Okay, hey Paigey, why don't you grab the syrup? It's warming on the stove. Next, I made this just for you guys. Hey Paigey, open up the butter. You guys can spread on some butter, get some berries. Got some warm syrup for you. So how was it? All 5 of you in one big bed.
Squishy.
Squishy. Who's the wildest sleeper?
Paige.
Paige.
Coffee for sleep.
Cassie, you want some syrup? Tell me when.
So the question is, guys, what do you want to do today? You have the whole ranch to yourselves.
Horseback riding.
I'm gonna make a classic corned beef hash, and I'm gonna start by roasting the russet and sweet potatoes. I peeled them and diced them pretty small. I'm getting them onto a sheet pan and just drizzling with olive oil, really simple, and plenty of salt and pepper. So I'm just gonna toss it with the bench scraper, and then let's get the potatoes into the oven. Alex, ready? Boy, we're walking to the oven a lot. I know. 425 degrees for 18 to 20 minutes until the taters are nice and roasted. Okay, the potatoes are almost done, so I'm gonna move forward with the skillet situation. I've got some chopped onion and some minced garlic, and I've just got a little bit of olive oil in the pan. So I'm gonna stir and start the cooking process for this. And while that starts to cook, I'm gonna get the eggs going. So I'm gonna make sunny side up eggs. And I always wanna have plenty of time to get the eggs cooked since they're not gonna be flipped. It takes a little extra time. So I've got some olive oil in a little skillet, and I already cracked the eggs. And I just poured them right in, and I'll sprinkle on some salt and pepper. There is nothing like a sunny side up egg. So I've got this on low, and I'm just gonna let these eggs sit and slowly cook. All right, so the onions and the garlic are cooking. So I'm just gonna keep stirring these around for about 3 minutes until they start to soften. All right, the onions are starting to soften. So I'm gonna add the corned beef since this is a corned beef hash. So to this, I'm gonna add some grill seasoning. Just any old grill seasoning is fine. And then a little bit of Worcestershire sauce. Oh yeah, and look at these eggs so far.
Wow.
Oh, there's, wow, thanks for the, finally, for an enthusiastic reaction today. Alrighty, so I'm gonna let this start to cook. And let's go to the oven and get the potatoes, Alex, okay?
To the oven again. My legs are getting tired. Wow.
Roasty potatoes. All right, and then I'm gonna scrape the potatoes right into the skillet. There we go. Woo! I love hash for breakfast. It's frugal, it's delicious. Okay, look at this, Alex.
Wow.
How's it look?
It's looking and smelling amazing.
It is, so I'm just gonna let it cook for a good couple of minutes in this hot pan to get the edges kind of brown, and then we'll serve it up. Okay, Alex, get in here and look at this. Look, this is what you call corned beef hash. Nothing fancy, just celebrating all of the ingredients for what they are. And the mix of sweet potatoes and russet potatoes are kind of a nice little interest. Okay. I'm leaving that towel there because I'm gonna put this hot pan right here so we can see it. So I kind of polled the kids and I was asking if I should break up the eggs before I add them to the top of the corned beef, or if I should just slide them on in, and they chose the slide option. So let me move some of the corned beef to the edge because we don't want to lose the beauty. Ready?
Oh.
Oh my gosh, please. Thank you.
Oh.
Look at that, you guys. That was a great suggestion.
Oh my God.
And then grab some parsley. But isn't this pretty? And what I love about it is that you can just serve it to your kids, or you can serve it to like holiday company. Okay, and then a little bit of parsley elevates it a little bit. Look at this.
Oh my goodness.
Corned beef hash. Of all the meals in the world, I think I love brunch the best. There are just so many possibilities for the food. You can make breakfast food, lunch food, and it's early in the day. When I'm hosting a brunch, I like foods that I can make ahead of time, and then I don't have a mad rush in the morning. I'm gonna show you how to make some of my new favorite brunch things, starting with a French onion frittata. Wow, is this packed with flavor. Wow, is this easy to make, and wow, it's delicious. I've been cooking 3 sliced white onions in a mixture of oil and butter, and I added a little garlic and fresh thyme. And it took about 15 minutes to get them to this deep golden color, and gosh, are these delicious. I'm gonna add a little more flavor to the mix with some balsamic vinegar, just a little bit, some Worcestershire, just a little bit. And I like to add fresh cracked pepper to the onions. Okie doke. These look fantastic. So I have a little plate and they are ready to come out. I'm gonna grab my trusty spatula. It'll work a little bit better. Look at these onions. I mean, you could use these onions in a panini. You could add them to a simple soup to make it taste like you've been cooking it for hours. You could eat this with a fork. I could go on and on. Okay, so I'm gonna add a little butter to the skillet. And this frittata has potatoes. So I have very thinly sliced red potatoes, and those will go in. And I'll turn up the heat. Now I'll just stir the potatoes around for about 3 minutes so they can start to cook. Okay, the potatoes are starting to brown and they're also starting to soften. So now I turn the heat to low. And I'm gonna add the cheese because I think all frittatas should have plenty of cheese. And this is Gruyere, which is probably my favorite cheese for anything from omelets to frittatas. I'm gonna hang on to this for something else I'll tell you about in a minute. Now come the onions, and I'll just sprinkle these deep, dark, delicious caramelized onions all over the cheese. I have eaten caramelized onions with Gruyere cheese so much in my life, and really it's a play on French onion soup, and that's why I'm using this combination. Okie doke, we're off to a delicious start with this brunch food. Now I have some beaten eggs in a pitcher, and I'll season it real quick with plenty of salt and pepper, and give it a stir. And yes, the eggs go over this entire delicious scene in here. I'll start by pouring the eggs around the edge just to make sure they make a little bit of a shell, and then I'll fill it in. But you just want to make sure the eggs are poured evenly over all of this absolute heaven. Finally, a sprinkling of fresh chives, which makes the frittata so delicious and so flavorful. Now, if you want this to be a make-ahead frittata, you can stop at this stage, cover the pan with foil, and keep it in the fridge overnight, and then just bake it fresh the next morning. So now it's over to the oven for the frittata, and while it's in there, I'm gonna make some cheesy toast to go with it. So to bake the frittata, I'll put it in a 375-degree oven for 20 minutes. Meantime, I'll drizzle 8 slices of bread with 2 tablespoons of olive oil, sprinkle over 1.5 cups of grated Gruyere, and put them in with the frittata to cook for 10 minutes. Then I'll remove the frittata and let it sit for 5 minutes so everything's ready at the same time. The frittata has been resting, and this cheesy toast is very cheesy, and it is done. And I want to show you my favorite way to serve this brunchy meal. Look at this frittata. What's magical about it is that it has a little bit of crispiness on the outer edges, partly from the cheese, but inside it's nice and soft and gooey. And it's always good to let the frittata rest before you serve it, because it just kind of settles in and stays together, first of all. If you try to slice it and serve it too soon, it might kind of fall apart on you. Now for this cheesy toast, slice it diagonally in half and put a couple pieces on there. And then I have some fresh sliced tomato, which is brunchy, lunchy, dinnery. It goes with everything. Definitely goes with eggs. And then a little sprinkle of extra chives. You can put the chives everywhere. Makes the plate pretty. Oh my goodness. French onion frittata, cheesy toast. This is my kind of brunch. It's gonna be hard for me to top this one, but I am sure gonna try. Holy frittata, Tex-Mex frittata. It is scrumptious, seriously perfect for breakfast, lunch, or dinner. I've been grating some pepper jack cheese, perfect for a Tex-Mex frittata, I think. And I'm gonna get all of the frittata ingredients into the skillet. I've got some thinly sliced Yukon Gold potatoes and some sliced red onion, a couple colors of bell pepper, and then garlic and jalapeno. Everything goes in the pan, it's so easy. You don't have to saute the vegetables at different stages. Okay, I'm gonna season the veggies with some salt and pepper and a little bit of ground cumin. Really enhances that Tex-Mex flavor. This is a pretty combination of veggies. Okay, I'm gonna let these keep cooking, and I'm gonna whip up the egg mixture. I've got 8 eggs, and I'm just gonna give them a little beat with a fork, and then I love to add salsa to eggs. I've got a 1/4 cup of jarred salsa. I can't remember the last time I ate a fried egg or scrambled eggs without putting salsa or hot sauce on top. Now, I'm gonna put all of this grated pepper jack straight into the egg and salsa mixture. Okay, that's all mixed together. And I'm gonna pour the egg and salsa and cheese mixture all over the veggies, and it's gonna kind of seep down in between everything. Okay, now I'm gonna cook the frittata so it sets on the top and the bottom. It'll take about 5 minutes to set the bottom, and then I'll put it under the broiler on the middle rack for another 5 minutes to set the top. It sure smells great. Oh, it sure looks great. Wow. I want to get that straight out of the skillet before it sticks. If I play my cards right, it should slip right out. There we go. So this turned out very well. I'm gonna cut a nice big wedge. It's kind of a thin frittata, so I'm gonna go wide with the slice. Oh, it smells so good, and look how pretty it is. Got some avocado and sliced cherry tomatoes, and I love to put a little spoonful of sour cream on top. And cilantro is perfect. Just sprinkle leaves all over. That is a beautiful Tex-Mex frittata. I have had so much fun talking you through some meatless marvels. I think it's time for me to stop talking and start eating. Now, the first thing to remember is to start with a bag that's approved for boiling in water. And the second thing to remember is you gotta have fun. I'm just prepping all the ingredients first. I'm gonna slice off a little piece of green bell pepper. I'm gonna dice everything up pretty fine. I don't think it's gonna take too long to cook the omelets, so I don't wanna have huge chunks of veggies. I just grabbed whatever veggies I could get my hands on. I'm a big mushroom person when it comes to omelet. Okay, I'm gonna dice up just a little tomato. The good news is I'm not making a huge commitment by just making one omelet in a bag. It's nice to experiment with things like this before you really go whole hog. Okay, I've also got a green onion for extra flavor. And why not? I've got chives too. Open up your produce drawer and see where the world takes you. Okay, so now I'll put this thing together. Cannot wait to try this. I'm gonna start with 3 eggs. That's a pretty good size for an omelet. And I just decided to take the easy thing one step further and not even use a bowl to mix up the eggs. I'm gonna crack them right in the bag. And then very carefully use a fork to just break them up. I sure don't want to pierce a hole in the bag. And then everything just goes in. The peppers, tomatoes, some grated cheese, some thin deli ham. Of course, you could use bacon, sausage, anything you've got. And the green onions and chives. I'm getting stuff all over the place. And the shrooms. Needs a little bit of flavor, so I'll sprinkle in some salt and pepper. I gotta tell you, I love it already. Okay, I'm gonna seal it up and get most of the air out. It's so colorful and pretty, and I love the idea of making a bunch of these the night before. It would make the cooking process go so much faster than tending to a skillet. All right, here goes nothing. Drop the bag right into simmering water. Guess what? The 15 minutes are up, and I cannot wait to see the results of these little hack experiments. Look at that omelet. I am so intrigued. Okay, I'm gonna set it down and just let it cool off a little bit. It is mighty hot. My dream is that this thing falls right out of the bag. It looks amazing. Wow, it's just so moist and perfect. I think it could use just a little garnish. I've still got some chives left. I knew I had to throw a viral recipe into this mix. So we've all heard of pesto eggs, right?
Woo, yeah.
Alex, I think you even made it on social media. So I'm gonna make a toast out of the pesto eggs. So if you've never made pesto eggs before, you need 2 things: pesto and peanut butter. No, and eggs. The reason that pesto eggs are a thing is that the pesto actually has oil as the base. So it serves as the oil or butter for the eggs. So I've got 2 eggs already cracked, and when the pesto is heated up, the eggs go in. So while the eggs cook, I'm gonna get the toast ready. It is very simple. I've just got a really good piece of thick sliced sourdough. And I've got some roasted garlic aioli, which is kind of a fancy way of saying mayonnaise, but it's got roasted garlic in it. Oh man, oh man. Then I've got some sliced Gouda cheese.
Is it Gouda?
It's really Gouda. And I'm spreading it on top. And then, come with me, Alex. We're gonna put this under the broiler. So I'm gonna put it under the broiler until the cheese melts and is pretty bubbly. That's not gonna take very long. So hopefully the eggs will be done by the time the toast is ready. So I'm gonna sprinkle some salt and pepper over the eggs. And then I've also got some crushed red pepper flakes just to add a little bit of heat.
Crucial.
Sprinkle those over the eggs. And then they are sizzling away, so I'm actually gonna flip them. You dare me?
Oh gosh,
Oh,
do
you
not.
won't.
No, I'm not going to.
Do it. You can
No,
do
I
it.
better not. I
I'll
don't want
do
to
it.
show off. Actually, I might.
Oh no.
No way.
All right, you can use a spatula to flip, or you can just use the wrist that God gave you. Woo!
Wow.
Okay, let's go get the toast out of the oven. The eggs are gonna be ready any second. What do you think this cheese looks like?
Boobly.
Oh my
Oh
gosh.
my gosh.
Yep, it looks Gouda.
Whoa.
Good.
Of all the things we have made, this is my favorite of all time.
Whoa.
Wow, that's a
Cheese
bold
toast.
statement.
Look at this.
Wow.
Absolutely stunning. All right, but I'm not finished yet. I've got some beautiful heirloom tomatoes that I sliced, and I'll just put a piece of basil in between each slice. I'm actually gonna put this on a plate. I changed my mind. Okay. And then come the pesto eggs right over top. Oh, I forgot sea salt. I probably should have put that on the tomatoes, but oh well. All right, pesto egg toast. The perfect refresh, not only to pesto eggs, but to regular old cheese toast. Freezer breakfast panini. I'm starting by buttering the bread generously. Now, I've already got a batch in the panini maker. I have a skillet of butter, and I want to heat up the ham. I've got a whole bunch of eggs, and I'm adding a generous amount of half and half. Sprinkle in salt and pepper. Okay, the egg mixture is nice and smooth. So I will check on the ham. Now it comes out of the skillet. I'm gonna go ahead and add just a little bit more butter, pour in the egg mixture. Now I'll just let them cook. The eggs are beautifully scrambled, so I'm gonna turn the heat off. Every panini has to have a delicious spread. This one has a base of mayonnaise, sprinkle in a little salt, hot sauce, a nice zip of lime. All right, good to go. I'll grab 2 slices of bread, spread sauce on both pieces, a piece of Monterey Jack, then comes the ham, a good amount of scrambled eggs, a roasted green chili, and the top goes on. Now I'll fold up the foil and just wrap them tightly for the freezer. I'll put the panini on the sheet pan in their foil and bake them at 350 degrees for 20 minutes. My day is off to a great start. The boys are outside playing, and I'm making them a portable dinner with a breakfast spin. Breakfast quesadillas. They're one of the boys' favorite things to eat. They're one of my favorite things to eat too. Now I'm just swirling some butter around a really hot skillet, and I'll start by cooking some vegetables for the quesadillas. Got some onion, and then some diced red bell pepper, and then just to give them a little spice, some chopped jalapeno. Now I'll just stir these around. I've got the heat on pretty high because I want the veggies to get nice color on the outside. Okay, I'll let the veggies keep cooking, and now I'll move over to the egg mixture for the quesadillas. I've got a bunch of eggs, and I'll splash in some half and half, and just a little salt and pepper. That's my basic scrambled egg mixture, and it works perfect every time. I'll just whisk them around. Breakfast quesadillas are always perfect on the ranch, no matter what time of day it is. Okay, the veggies should be nice and soft. Check them. Oh, nice golden color. They look great. So I'll just pour the egg mixture right in. I love scrambled eggs with peppers and onions. It's one of my favorite combinations. Now I'll just stir these eggs around the pan. The eggs are all done. They look absolutely delicious. So now I've just got to start building the quesadillas. I've got a griddle going over medium-low heat, and I've got to smear a bunch of butter on it. I love using lots of butter when I make quesadillas. It just makes the tortillas nice and crisp. Now, I'm using whole wheat tortillas. You can use regular flour tortillas, Or even corn tortillas are delicious. That's actually my favorite. The boys love these whole wheat ones. Now, quesadillas, of course, have to have lots of cheese. I've got some cheddar jack cheese and I grated it myself. I think cheese always melts better when you grate it from the big block rather than use the stuff in the bag. Now the eggs go on, so I'll just grab a big spatula full and just sprinkle them really thick over the cheese. I'm actually making the boys each a half a quesadilla and I get a whole one. I'm an adult, it's my prerogative. Now I've also got some cooked bacon. I just fried it until it was crisp, and I'm not even gonna chop it up. I'm just laying pieces right over the egg mixture. You know, to make it easy, you could also just cook some breakfast sausage. I love bacon though. I couldn't pass up the opportunity. Now on my quesadilla, I'm adding some avocado. My boys don't love avocado. They don't like it either. So I'm just gonna put a little bit on mine and leave it off of theirs. Got a little extra cheese, so I'll just, for good measure, go over the top with the rest of it. That should be good. And then a second tortilla for each one. Now I just need to let the griddle do its job, wait till the other side is nice and golden, and then I'll flip them over. This is the moment of truth. Ready, set? Yay, one down. 1, 2, 3. Ah, yes. The griddle's a complete mess, but that just means the quesadillas are gonna be extra delicious. Now I'll just let them brown on the second side. The quesadillas are done. They look tremendously delicious. Now I love to cut quesadillas with a pizza cutter. It just makes it so easy. Just go down the middle and then across the other way. Now I'll just wrap up half for each of the boys. They both get 2 big wedges, and that should be plenty, even for them. There's one and the second one. I love these things because they're so versatile. You can use whatever meat you want, whatever veggies. As long as you've got some eggs in there, it's a breakfast quesadilla. Now I'm gonna keep mine warm and eat it later. For now, I'm gonna run these out to the boys. Hey boys, you guys ready for some food?
Yeah.
I made you breakfast quesadillas for dinner. How's that?
Ooh, that looks good.
Carry on, gentlemen. This Skillet story is all about cake. Pound cake, to be exact. Strawberry almond pound cake. So, mix butter and sugar, and I'm gonna add an egg at a time. I've got 3 total eggs, and I'm using a hand mixer because I just didn't feel like dragging out my stand mixer today. Okay, turn off the hand mixer for a minute. I added half a cup of sour cream, so eggs, sugar, butter, sour cream, all the good things in life. And now just a cup and a half of flour. Yum, yum. Pound cake is great because it can be dessert or it can be breakfast. It can be like a coffee cake for breakfast. Pinch of salt, a little bit of almond extract instead of vanilla extract, and that is where the almond flavor comes from. And then I'll just put it on very, very low. Okay, so I have some cut up strawberries, and I actually cut these in half. I'm gonna save the rest and put them on top of the batter. And I'm not gonna mix this, I'm going to fold it so that the strawberries don't break apart. Okay, then I have iron skillet, and I really generously buttered it. It's like the perfect consistency. It's really thick. It's not like a thin birthday cake batter. It's like a thick, substantial, almost like a coffee cake. Okay, and then I'm gonna press the rest of these strawberry halves into the top, and that way, when the cake bakes, it kind of like puffs up around the strawberries. Now I'm gonna make a delightful little crumble to put over the top. 1/4 cup of brown sugar and 1/4 cup of flour, and then just a little bit of butter, and I cut them into teeny little squares. And then I'm going to hope that I can break all this apart with a fork. because there's just not much of it. So I'm just gonna keep doing this until the butter is totally part of the sugar and flour. Now I got that all added, and then the last thing is just sliced almonds. And it's just a nice little crumble topping, and it gets sprinkled over the top. Bake it at 325 degrees just for about an hour. Look at this beautiful cake. It's been out cooling for about 30 minutes, but look at that gorgeous little crumble, brown sugary topping. Delicious, delicious. So I'm just sifting some powdered sugar, and I'm gonna make a simple glaze. In the powdered sugar, I'm gonna add some lemon juice. And this should just be enough to make it come together. It doesn't take much, especially when you sift the powdered sugar. Okay, so watch this. Ready? Oh, look. I love this.
Wow, that's beautiful.
It really is, isn't it? Perfect for breakfast, perfect for dessert, perfect for a midnight snack, perfect pound cake, all made in a skillet. Breakfast casseroles have always been a hit in the Drummond household, and there's nothing wrong with baking a big one in a casserole dish, but I've found more and more that I like making the small ones, because you can decide when you serve them. I keep them in the freezer in a bag, and depending on how many people I need to serve, I just take them out, nuke them, and breakfast is ready. Sometimes I do a sausage version, but I'm gonna do a ham version this time. Talk about delicious. First thing I gotta do is whisk up all these eggs. I cracked 20 eggs into the bowl. Of course, you can make as many or as few as you want to. So I'll add some salt and pepper. This is a lot of eggs. The ham is pretty salty, so I won't go too heavy on the salt, but I definitely want to have plenty of black pepper in there. I like to give eggs a little bit of a chili flavor, so I've got some chili powder. It also adds just a tiny bit of heat. Okay, all of this ham goes in. I've got some really finely diced onion. For a little green, I've got some diced green bell pepper. And you can have some fun with this. You can use yellow bell pepper, red, anything you've got in the produce drawer. And cheese, of course. Big pile of grated sharp cheddar. Okay, now I gotta stir all this together. And the rest of the recipe is even easier. The first step is to get the mixture into sprayed pans. Bake them at 350 for 15 minutes. When the time's up, they'll be puffy and just barely set. When they're cool, they're flash frozen on a sheet pan for 45 minutes. Then they go into a bag and back into the freezer. And that's it. A savory version of our favorite monkey bread. So I'm making the egg mixture first. Just got a bunch of eggs, and I added salt, pepper, and hot sauce. And I gave it a really good whisk. So I cooked some pieces of bacon in this skillet. I took the bacon out, and I did not clean the skillet because I want the eggs to have all of that incredible bacon flavor. Okay, I'm just gonna stir these around and cook them in a pan until they're totally set. So I turned off the heat, and I'll just let the eggs sit. And now I'll get the bread ready for the monkey bread. It starts with cut up refrigerated biscuits, and I'm gonna add melted butter, and then I'm gonna herb it up, since it's a savory version, with some minced parsley and finely minced chives. And then love this ingredient, some everything bagel seasoning, which is so popular right now. So I'm gonna stir the biscuits. I just wanna coat them in that melted butter. So the biscuits are ready. So now I'm gonna assemble the monkey bread in the pan. I'm gonna take half the biscuits and drop them in the bottom of a greased bundt cake pan. I wanna make sure there's a nice even layer of biscuits. So I have pepper jack, which is beautiful and creamy. And I'm adding a cup to the top of the biscuits. And you guessed it, the scrambled eggs. The bacon that I fried, nice generous layer. You gotta be generous with this. I'm gonna add the second half of the pepper jack cheese next. And then, yes, the rest of the biscuits. So basically the cheese, eggs, and bacon are just enclosed in between 2 layers of baked biscuits. So now it's time to put this in the oven. It's gonna bake at 375 degrees for 40 minutes, and then I'll take it out and let it sit for 10. So I let the monkey bread sit. It's been sitting for about 10 minutes. Now, if you look really closely, you can see that you can reach in and just grab pieces of this monkey bread and eat it like monkey bread. But since there are so many other ingredients in there, I'm gonna slice a piece and show you what is inside. I mean, I need a drum roll, I really do. Let's check it out. Oh my gosh, look at that. There's a little core of cheese surrounding eggs and bacon. It's a breakfast bundt cake is what it is. But when it comes to breakfast, this monkey bread truly is the complete package. I think you're gonna fall in love instantly. Pumpkin scones with coffee glaze. I'm combining packed brown sugar, very packed, with some all-purpose flour and baking powder, and then a good amount of pumpkin pie spice. I don't think there's a scone on earth that I don't love, but there is something about pumpkin scones that really lights my fire, especially this time of year. Now I'm gonna sprinkle in some cold pieces of butter, and then I wanna cut the butter into the dry ingredients using my trusty rusty pastry cutter. I'm gonna keep going until these resemble coarse crumbs. All right, that looks great. So now I'm gonna make the pumpkin mixture, which is just pumpkin puree and 2 eggs and heavy cream. Ooh, that's a good combination. And then I'll whisk this together. Now, this is not pumpkin pie filling, it's pumpkin puree, and sometimes those things are easily confused. Pumpkin pie filling has spices and everything in it, so this is just the straight up pumpkin, because we already added the spices to the dry ingredients. Whew, that was a long explanation. All right, so you guessed it, this gets mixed in with the dry ingredients, and I just kind of add it slowly while I move it around with a spatula, just to make mixing that much easier. And I don't want to just mix this to smithereens, because I don't want the scones to be tough. So I'm just going to kind of stir it lightly until it all comes together in a magical orange dough. All right, so I'm going to turn this out onto the board. And if some of the dry isn't all totally mixed in, that's normal, because it'll get mixed in when you form it. So basically, just turn it over a couple of times just to get everything mixed together. And this dough is so moist because of the pumpkin, so you don't even need a rolling pin. You can just use your fingers to push it into a long rectangle. Okay, so you can see what I did here, Paige. It's just basically a long rectangle. It's about 15 inches by about 2.5, 3 inches. All right, now these go into the oven. We're gonna bake these at 425 degrees for about 20 to 23 minutes until they're perfect. And then we'll let them cool and glaze them. The scones are just about cooled, and look how pretty they look, Paige. Oh man, it's all I can do not to eat one of those right now. Okay, so I'm making a delicious coffee glaze, and I just sifted a bunch of powdered sugar into a bowl. And I'm gonna add a little pinch of salt, because that just always helps things not get too sweet. And then to the powdered sugar, I'm gonna add some very strong coffee and some melted butter. And then I'm gonna get in here with the whisk and turn this into a glaze. All right. You can just keep whisking until you get it to the consistency you want. You can add a little less liquid if you want it to be more of a frosting. You can add a little more liquid if you want the glaze to be thin. So I'll grab a spoon and just spoon it over a scone. Oh man. And I want most of it to stay on top. If a little of it kind of dribbles over the side, that's just fine because it makes it look just a little more decadent and rich. And then I'll take a little pumpkin pie spice, a little more. And sprinkle it on. How good does that look right there? Woo, wow. All right, I'm gonna do the same thing to the rest of the scones. All right, pumpkin scones with coffee glaze, a little sprinkle of pumpkin pie spice. I've got to let them sit, and then I'm going to fill the basket with them. They're going to be just perfect for Aunt Mabel. Sweet and savory breakfast wraps. So I've been scrambling some eggs. First, I cooked some crumbled breakfast sausage, removed it to a plate, and I've been cooking the eggs in the same pan. I just seasoned them with salt and pepper, but they're getting all that flavor from the sausage. So these wraps are going to be delicious. The eggs look amazing. They're fluffy and just about fully cooked. So just to add a little color, I'm gonna dump in a jar of drained pimentos. All right, the eggs are done. So now I've got all the elements ready and I'm going to assemble the wraps. I've got a flour tortilla and I'm gonna start by adding cheese. I've got American cheese here and I'm just gonna overlap 2 slices right in the center of the tortilla. And then I'll use a spoon to scoop on probably 1/3 cup of the egg mixture. And then this crumbled sausage goes on. This is getting pretty full. I am going to put a hash brown patty on top. These are frozen hash brown patties, and I just baked them in the oven until they were crisp. So one goes on. You guessed it, maple syrup. I'm gonna drizzle just a small amount over the hash brown patty. You know those breakfasts where you have like French toast or pancakes, scrambled eggs on the pan, and you get everything all mixed up? Well, that's basically what this wrap is all about. Don't knock it till you try it. This is incredible, just having that little hint of sweet. So to roll the wrap, I'm gonna tuck up the edges and then just tuck it all in while I roll. And it doesn't matter what it looks like, as long as you get everything safely tucked inside. This sweet and savory breakfast wrap is ready to go. So I'm gonna build 7 more just like this one, and then I'll fry them on both sides until they're crisp. So that's all 8 wraps made. And the next step is to cook them seal side down on a griddle in melted butter for about a minute. Then when they're golden, I'll flip them over, cook them for another minute on the other side, and when they're deliciously golden on that side too, I'll take them off onto a board. Look at these sweet and savory breakfast wraps. They're basically a glorified burrito. So all you have to do is let them cool, wrap them in parchment, put them in the freezer, and then whenever somebody needs one, you just pop it in the microwave inside the parchment, go 2 minutes, then turn it over, another 2 minutes, and it's ready to eat. Be careful because the insides are very, very hot. I've been browning some Mexican chorizo sausage with some finely diced onion. So I'll go ahead and turn the skillet off, and I'm gonna make the egg mixture for the egg bites. It starts with 4 eggs, and I wanna make it really creamy. So in goes a 1/4 cup of heavy cream and a 1/4 cup of sour cream, and then some salt and pepper. And that is as complicated as the egg mixture goes. This is a great recipe because you can do so many different versions. Imagine anything that you would put in an omelet, and that's what you can put in a ready-to-go egg bite. Now, to assemble them and get them ready for the multi-cooker, I'm gonna use one of these great molds. You can get them online. And I sprayed it, and I'll take a couple of spoonfuls of the chorizo and onion mixture, and then a little pinch of grated Monterey Jack cheese. And then all you have to do is just pour enough egg mixture to reach just below the rim. Okay, now I'm gonna do 6 more exactly the same way. Okay, the mold is all filled. I'm gonna cover the top with foil just to get it all secure in there. Okay, now before I put this into the multi-cooker, I'm gonna put in the little trivet. It comes with it. And I'll pour some water into the machine. And then I'll just carefully lower the mold into the machine. And the lid goes on. And now I'm all set. So it's ready, steady, cook. I'll switch the pressure valve to sealing, press steam, and set the timer for 10 minutes. Then let the pressure release naturally for 10 minutes. And use a wooden spoon to set the valve to venting for quick release of the pressure. Okay, now that all the pressure is released, I can take them out of the multi-cooker. Oh, look at that steam. That's a very good sign. So I can grab the rim of the pan. Ooh, it's nice and steamy. So I'm gonna take off the foil and look at what's underneath. Now, if I play my cards right, they will slide right out. I love it when they come out in one piece. These are so great. Imagine sending these out the door 2 at a time, wrapped in a paper towel for your teenagers. Or if you're like me, you can enjoy them on a plate with a cup of coffee, a glass of orange juice. They're so versatile. These are gonna change your life. So basically, I baked the tots according to the package directions, and they're nice and crisp. And what I'm attempting to do, but not doing a very good job, is mound them kind of in the center. So they're sort of gathered up. That's perfect. So now I'm gonna top with Monterey Jack cheese. And basically you wanna just cover the tots completely, just like you would nachos if these were tortilla chips. I have made like buffalo chicken totchos. I've made like pepperoni pizza totchos. I mean, what's the world coming to? Bacon. Ooh. This is the first little hint of breakfast. All over the cheese. And then get a load of this. You're not gonna believe what I'm about to do. Jalapeno slices. Oh gosh, and you wanna get it on the cheese so when the cheese melts, it kind of just becomes one with it. Oh, I love pickled jalapenos. Mm-hmm. And watch this, there's a little juice, watch.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Now you're talking.
Green onions sliced, might as well get these going too. And then I'm gonna put these back in the oven. So come on, Alex.
Ooh.
I would just eat these with a fork as they are right now. So I'm gonna put them back into the oven while I get the eggs ready. So let's go do that. So I'm gonna make sunny side up eggs because they look beautiful and because then you'll have some egg yolk to kind of crack all over the nachos. So I've got a skillet with a little bit of vegetable oil, and watch this, Alex. I'm just gonna crack 4 eggs right into the oil. The pan is not too hot because I want to kind of cook them slowly, just until the whites set, but while the yolks are still really runny. You can do butter if you want to. Vegetable oil is kind of a little bit more of a classic way to do sunny side up eggs. They turn out really clean and beautiful. All right. And I didn't crack a yolk. It's gonna be a good day. So I'll season them with salt and pepper. Sorry, Alex, I got in your way there. Salt and pepper. And then I'm just gonna kind of cook these over medium heat until the whites are totally set and the yolks are just barely starting to set. Don't leave me, this is gonna go fast. Okay, Alex, take a look at these eggs. You see how the whites are totally set? Mm-hmm. There's just a tiny bit that isn't. So I'm gonna turn the heat down and I'm gonna go back to the oven.
Okay, don't.
You ready, Dookie? Oh, these look so good. Oh, Alex, look. Okay, so come in here and get a load of this.
Oh,
Cheese,
baby.
bacon, jalapenos. Honestly, I could just dive in right now. But there's more to add.
Guacamole.
So, to my totchos, I will add guacamole, just here and there and everywhere. You can also serve this on the side if you prefer. I just like it to be a big pile of just sin and craziness. Pico de gallo, sprinkle. I love it. Sour cream. Sour cream. Look. Oh, I'm so happy right now. This looks splendid. Okay, so then look at these gorgeous eggs. And you can have like a paper towel nearby and just to dab all that, dab the oil off. Oh. Okay, so watch this, Alex. Ready? Oh, slippery. Oh gosh. Pretend you didn't see that. I just tap it a little bit to get the excess oil off. What about right on top? But how pretty is this?
Wow.
And put it on the table, serve some guests,
Looks amazing.
serve your hungry guests. That's gonna be me at your house someday.
That's
right.
We'll make this for
I'm
you.
actually investing in my future by showing you guys how to make all of these.
It's true.
Okay, and the last egg. Oh my gosh, it's gorgeous. And just to send things over the edge, some fresh cilantro. I don't like to chop cilantro. It should be celebrated. It's natural beauty, natural leaf. What do you think, guys?
It looks amazing.
I think
So good.
it needs more pico.
Yes, I agree.
It needs more of that beautiful red. Breakfast tachos. I don't know about you, but this may be my new favorite thing. Now, the biscuits are actually cayenne cheddar, and they're delicious. I've just been grating up some cheddar cheese, and I think I've got just enough. So I'll scoot that over, and I'll start putting together the biscuit dough. It starts with 3 cups of all-purpose flour, about 1/3 cup of non-fat dry milk, a tablespoon of sugar, and then a heaping tablespoon of baking powder, a teaspoon of cream of tartar, a teaspoon of cayenne pepper, and then a couple of teaspoons of salt. Now I'll just stir the dry ingredients together, add a stick of butter cut into pieces, and I also have 1/2 cup of shortening. Now I just want to work it together until the mixture looks like coarse crumbs. So this is a good time to add the cheddar. I've got a good cup's worth. I love cheesy biscuits. I'm just going to stir it into the butter and flour mixture. So for the wet ingredients, it's nothing more than good old buttermilk. My favorite wet ingredient to add to any biscuit dough. I'll just stir it around and slowly work it in. Okay, I'll give it a good stir and see how that looks. I definitely want all the crumbs to be absorbed, but I don't want the mixture to be overly wet like a batter. It definitely needs to be a stiff dough. Okay, it's all come together and the dough looks great. So I'll get it all off the spoon, and I'll grab a little flour and get it on the board. This is a pretty sticky, wet dough, so I'm gonna need all the help I can get. And it just goes right out. Now I'll grab a little extra flour and just sprinkle on top. Now rather than use a rolling pin, I'm just gonna use my hands and just flatten them. I like the tops to be lumpy and textured. That looks great. I'll just cut them out. Just 2 more biscuits to go in the pan. I smeared a little butter on the surface. I'm gonna brush a little bit of butter right on top of each biscuit. Now I've got the oven preheated to 450 degrees. That's pretty hot, so they only need to bake for about 10 to 12 minutes, just until they're nice and golden. Now while they bake, I'm gonna move forward on the fillings for the biscuits, starting with big old sausage patties. And now I just need to cook these on both sides until they're totally done. They're all done, so I'll take those out. Now, breakfast biscuits have to have eggs, of course. I love fried eggs, but Lad and Bryce are crazy about them. It's definitely their preference when it comes to eggs. I'm cool with that. I'll eat anything. Now I'll just sprinkle the eggs with a little bit of salt and pepper. All right, I'll let the eggs start to cook, and I'm gonna grab those biscuits. I know they're done because the kitchen pretty much smells like heaven right now. Oh yes, they look amazing. Nice and brown, ooh, delicious. I'll check on the eggs. I don't want them to get too cooked. I'll try to flip them without breaking the yolks. One down, here goes two. And the third one. Victory is mine. Now I'll get the assembly line going for the biscuits. I'm wrapping them in just individual foil sheets, so I'll get them open. Now these biscuits are gonna be nice and piping hot. Ooh, emphasis on hot. The second one. Now I'll just use a serrated knife to cut right through. Ooh, those are hot. Let's see how tough a country woman I am right now. Now I'll open them up and get them ready for all those luscious fillings. I'm using a slice of white cheddar on each one. Because the biscuits are so hot, it's gonna help the cheese soften and melt. Then I will do the sausage patties. How good does this look so far? You could stop right there, but when have I ever stopped right there? I've gotta grab the eggs. Perfect, right on top of the sausage. This definitely would not be considered one of my low-cal recipes, but those guys are working hard out there. Couple dashes of hot sauce on top of each egg, just to give them a little different flavor, a little bit of spice. Oh, these look so good. I'll get the lids on. That top biscuit is gonna absorb some of that hot sauce. I'm gonna get these wrapped up so they stay warm, and then I'll run them out to the guys. So I'm gonna make the pancake batter in the blender, which makes it doubly easy. Adding in whole milk and a couple of eggs. And then 1/4 cup of sugar. It's kind of a sweet pancake batter, which is my personal preference. I'm sure that surprises you. Baking powder, right on in. I hope everything fits. And then just regular flour. Okay, I think I can get the rest of it in. It's like a smoothie, but not. And then a good amount of vanilla. Okay, so I'm gonna blend this for 30 seconds. Oops, I forgot to add butter. Okay. I'm gonna blend it again for another 12 seconds. Okay, all blended up. So I have a sheet pan smeared with a ton of butter. I'm gonna pour the batter into the sheet pan. I'm going to actually arrange fruit in 3 sections. So strawberries first. Basically, the pancake puffs up around whatever topping you choose. Blueberries and chocolate chips in the third. Now I'm gonna put the pan into the oven. This is an oven, right?
I think so.
And I'm gonna bake it at 425 for 25 minutes. It's time to get the sheet pancake out of the oven. Now, don't be disappointed that you can't see the blueberries very well. They are definitely in there. I see them. Okay, so isn't this pretty? I just think it looks so good, but as good as it looks, that's nothing compared to how it smells, which is nothing compared to how it's gonna taste. So I've got some butter in a skillet, and I'm just adding scrambled eggs, whipped eggs, with some salt and pepper. And then I have a bunch of chopped chives. I'm just gonna stir the eggs and cook them slowly over medium heat until they're scrambled. And just like that, the eggs are scrambled. They look glorious. I was noticing when they were scrambling just how beautiful and fluffy they look. There's something about scrambled eggs with chives that, weakness of mine, I just love them. So I'm putting them into a bowl so that they will quickly cool down. These are great little just pockets that you can bake and serve for breakfast. You can serve them for lunch with a little side salad. And then I'm gonna add some ham. I didn't want to add the ham to the skillet because I didn't want to contribute to everything being hot, 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 and the ham is already cooked. So the ham's going to kind of help cool things down. so that I can add the cheese because these are cheesy ham and egg hand pies. So I've got grated cheddar and mozzarella cheese, and then I'll just toss, and by now the eggs are kind of cool enough that it's not gonna turn the cheese into a melty, stringy mess. Okay, so now I'm gonna make the pockets. So I'm using puff pastry, and I thawed out 2 sheets and then cut them into 12 squares of equal size. And I'm gonna get a spoon, get a big scoop of the egg mixture, pretty generous, because I mean, if you're gonna grab a cheesy ham and egg hand pie, you definitely wanna have the cheese, ham, and eggs inside. You don't wanna miss them. So then I have a little bit of an egg wash, just egg and water. And I'm gonna brush the rim pretty generously because this acts as sort of a glue. And when you put it on, you kind of want to stretch it just a little bit to make sure you can meet the edges of the pastry. Just meet them up, press them together, kind of force out any air bubbles that are forming in the center. Make sure it's not filled with a big air bubble. And then take a fork and press all along the edge just to crimp everything together. Okay, so that is one cute little pocket or hand pie. I'm gonna put this on the tray and do 5 more just like it. All right, I got them all assembled. I love these. So I'm brushing the egg wash all over the surface, and that's gonna help them get kind of glossy and stay pretty when they bake. Now you can actually assemble these like they are now and then freeze them just like this. Flash freeze them in the freezer for a few minutes until they're kind of hard, and then you can just store them in plastic bags and bake them from a frozen state. Now that is some really good planning if you can pull that off. Okay, so then just to give them a little bit of decoration and crunch on top, I'm gonna sprinkle on some poppy seeds. And that egg wash will just really help them stick. You can also sprinkle a little bit of grated cheese on top instead of the poppy seeds, and they'd sort of like little shards of cheese will bake right on the surface. 400 degrees, 20 minutes, and then we are gonna eat them. I'm hungry. All right, it's been 20 minutes and 13 seconds. So, can't speak. So let's take a look. How do they look? That pastry. I think I should just go in and report my findings. Breakfast or lunch? The answer is yes. So I am gonna make a Dutch baby, also known as a Dutch pancake. I'm telling you guys, this thing is so much fun. It's a little risky to make it on camera because it's one of those things where you're not exactly sure it's gonna turn out perfectly, but we will hope for the best, won't we guys?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm starting out by adding 3 eggs to the blender, and I'm gonna add 3/4 of a cup of whole milk. And then I'm gonna blend this. This is such an easy recipe. Just blend it real quick. Okay, and now to the blender, I'm going to add 3/4 of a cup of flour. This is very simple.
You're adding maple syrup?
Yeah.
Oh.
I mean, thank you for double checking me, but
I thought you
let me just check real quick.
I thought you thought you were adding vanilla.
No, it is going, yeah. Just a tablespoon of maple syrup. I added 3/4 of a cup of flour. It's so nice to have helpful daughters because they're not afraid to just stop you in your tracks. Tablespoon of maple syrup, give or take. And then just half a teaspoon of vanilla. This is a really fun thing to make when you have your kids home, which is where I got the idea to make it today. I don't think I've ever made this for you guys.
You have a little spill.
Alex isn't gonna let me get away with anything. Okay, now I'm gonna blend this till it's smooth. It's smooth. Okay, now this is the really fun part. Alex, would you please follow me to the oven?
Oh, yeah.
So here's what we did. Actually, my kids did this before we got started. Turned the oven on to 425, and then they actually stuck an iron skillet in the oven to get it super hot. I mean, this thing is hot, hot, hot. You definitely want to have heat-proof mitts. So now, ooh, that's hot. It's like a sauna leaning over that. So I'm gonna add some butter. And look, Alex, as you can see, that skillet is as if it's been on the stovetop. So you want the hot skillet to melt that butter and just kind of swirl it around the pan. You really need to use a cast iron skillet for this because nothing can get as hot as this. So watch this. You're gonna wanna come in. Here, I'm gonna shut the oven, Alex.
Kind of a heat wave.
Okay, so then you just pour the batter right into the pan and look at those edges, how it's kind of bubbling. And then here is the secret. Get your mitts back on and stick it into the oven. And you need to wait 25 minutes and be ready when that time is up because you have to see it right when it comes out. Okay. Night, night. See you soon. See you back here in 25 minutes. Okay, I peeked at this. It is not as puffy as it sometimes is, but that's okay. It's still gonna be delicious. So let's take a look. Oh, it's a little puffy.
In certain areas.
Look at this. Go ahead and go around, Paigey. I'm actually gonna slide my pot holder under there because that is about as hot as a pan can get. Look at this, Paige. Oh, you've got these little soft areas.
It looks like Colorado.
It does look like the Rocky Mountains right there. So, this is how you serve it up. It's very fun to serve. You basically just reach in there and look, poop, deflated. And it's just like a thin, eggy pancake. And the only difficult thing about it, here, let me get a sharper knife. Hold on. I'm struggling a little bit. The only difficult part about this is which one of your kids are you gonna serve first? So then you add a little butter. Come in here and look, Paige. A little bit of maple syrup. So pretty. And I've got some wild blueberry syrup, which I think is delightful on a Dutch baby. Look at that. Oh, how gorgeous. And then a little bit of lemon zest, I think. What do you think, Paige?
Some fruit.
Some fruit. Got some raspberries and some blueberries, some blackberries. Ooh. How about some more blueberry syrup? Yum! Oh, I almost dropped it off the plate. Have you ever had a Dutch baby? I promise you, you will be happy with this. Serve it to your guests, serve it to yourself, serve it to your kids, serve it to your cousins, serve it to your nephew, serve it to your daughter.
Switch.
What do you think? We gotta get the moment.
Cut a piece. Get a little raspberry in there. A little whipped cream. Not so good.
I'll start with 4 cups of all-purpose flour, and then I'll throw in half a cup of sugar. And then 2 tablespoons of baking powder. Now I'll just sift away. Okay, got that sifted. Now I have some butter and shortening, and I'll measure half a stick of butter, or 1/4 a cup, and 1/4 a stick of shortening, which is still half a cup. And then I'll just use a pastry cutter to get it all combined. Okay, that's all worked together. And now I'll get started on the wet ingredients. I'll start with 2 jars of orange marmalade. 2 cups basically, but I happen to know that 1 jar of this marmalade is just over a cup. So I don't have to measure into measuring cups. Okay, and then to the orange marmalade, I'll add some orange juice, about a cup. And then I'll just splash in a little bit of vanilla, 2 teaspoons or so. Oh, that smells so good. I smell that marmalade. Now I'll just mix the marmalade mixture into the dry ingredients. And I'm not really gonna stir it in at this point. I'm just barely working it in. Gorgeous. And now I've got 3 beaten eggs. And I'll just stir lightly while I drizzle in the eggs. Okay, I just use a regular ice cream scoop to fill the muffin tins individually. I'm gonna make a great topping for these muffins that'll make them nice and crunchy and give them a little extra sweetness. I'll start with half a cup of sugar and 1/4 cup of brown sugar. And then I'll measure a teaspoon of cinnamon and I'll grate in some fresh nutmeg. Always a delicious choice. Now I'll just give that a little mix just to break it all up. Add a little bit of salt, about 1/4 teaspoon or so. And then I've got a couple tablespoons of butter that I've melted on the stove. And I'll just really slowly drizzle that in as I mix the topping. I'm just gonna put about a heaping teaspoon of topping over the top of each muffin. I've got one more thing to add. Wheat germ. This just adds a nice flavor, a nice crunch to the top of the muffins. I just do about 1/2 teaspoon or so over the top. Now these need to bake at 375 for about 20 to 22 minutes. And then I'll just let them cool and serve them at the barn tomorrow. Hey guys, you wanna eat some muffins real quick before we have some fun?
Yeah. Oh, thank you, honey.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mama.
Looks pretty good, honey.
Corn biscuits smothered in sausage pepper gravy. So I have crumbled some spicy breakfast sausage and it's all cooked down and the fat is rendered. So this is sausage gravy. So to make the gravy, I'll just sprinkle a good amount of flour over the crumbled sausage. And then I'm gonna stir this around and let the flour cook just a little bit so it loses that raw flavor. All right, that flour has had a chance to start cooking. So I'll pour in the milk. And I usually start with probably 2 or 3 cups. You just kind of add it till it feels right. Okay, I'm gonna turn the heat down just a little bit. And for this stage of the gravy, you just have to stir and let it slowly thicken over time. So the gravy is just about as perfect as it gets. Look at how thick it is, and you can see those bits of sausage. It is just, it's a work of art is what it is. I know Chuck would agree with me. So I'm gonna really pepper up this gravy. When I first married Lad and kind of started cooking and eating the foods that they like to eat on the ranch, I was blown away by the amount of black pepper they put in things like gravy and mashed potatoes, things like that. I would add what I thought was an enormous amount of black pepper, and then I'd see them load their plates and sprinkle more pepper on top. So I have just added more and more through the years. When it comes to sausage gravy, the pepper adds a little bit of heat, but it really does add a great flavor. You miss it if you don't add enough of it. Now the sausage is plenty salty, so you don't want to over salt it. I do like to add just a little sprinkle of seasoned salt, little bit of kosher salt, and of course with gravy, you want to taste it and taste it and taste it again until you declare it complete, ready to go. I do feel Chuck is watching me right now. Oh gosh, it's pretty perfect. So I've got the biscuits. Sometimes you can slice the biscuits in half and open them up to serve, but a lot of the guys like to tear the biscuits into pieces. and then serve a big old ladleful right on top of the biscuits. And if the gravy gets too thick, you can just splash in more milk and stir it. Better add some more pepper, because I know Chuck would do that. Okay, biscuits and gravy, just like my father-in-law Chuck would serve it to himself. It does not get much better than this. Crispy morning wraps. So I've been cooking some sausage, just regular breakfast sausage. I kind of crumbled it into big chunks. So just eggs, salt, pepper, and milk. That's all this is. And I'll pour it into the same pan that I used to cook the sausage. Okay, now I'm just gonna scramble these eggs, straight up scrambled eggs, nothing fancy about it. Okay, I'm gonna turn off the eggs and just let them sit. So now I am going to build the crispy morning wrap, and it is so much fun. So you've got to start with a big tortilla, flour please, and then I'll add some cheese, cheddar cheese, and Monterey Jack cheese. So the sausage that I made earlier, I'm gonna add as much as I can get on there. Yum, yum, yum. And now come the eggs, or eggs.
Eggs.
However you like to say it. Boop. And then a little more. Boop. And then I'm gonna get some salsa. And then I've got some sliced avocado. Oh, and you know what? There's something in the oven that I forgot about. Just pop it right there. Oh, those are hot. Little hash brown coins, okay? This is, this is looking pretty hilarious. Oh, sour cream, that's right. And then it's just about folding in the sides, okay? So, and then fold up the other two sides. And then, look.
Wow.
And then it's kind of a neat little square. Look how cute that is. And then what you want to do is put it immediately, I should have just put it straight in there, into the skillet with the olive oil. Okay, now I'm gonna cook it on the first side until it's golden. It's already time to flip. Boop. When you put the seam side down first, it kind of just seals it, so you can make sure it's gonna stay closed.
The big reveal.
I mean, emphasis on big, my word. Oh, it's so crispy, listen.
It is.
Oh, look.
Yum.
Look at that. Oh, wow. I'm making baked eggs in hash brown cups. I've got 8 potatoes that I baked at 400 for about 45 minutes or so. I baked them until they were just tender. They're totally cooled, so they're really easy to grate. If they were still hot, I wouldn't be able to hold on to them. The grated potatoes are gonna wind up looking like little nests, and then I crack an egg in. They're so adorable. All right, I got all the potatoes grated, which is a good thing because the grater is totally full. So I'll just fish all of them out of there. They are packed. Okay, now this is a lot of potatoes, so I'm gonna season them pretty well with plenty of salt. I'll just toss them around with my fingers, and plenty of pepper. And when these bake, they're gonna get nice and crisp. I just love these things, so good. All right, now I've got 2 muffin pans, and to make sure the nests don't stick, I'm gonna spray them really, really well with cooking spray. All right, the second one. And now I'll make the nests. I'm gonna take about 3 to 4 tablespoons of the potato mixture and put it into one of the muffin tins. Then I'll use my fingers to really, really lightly press it so it goes around the sides. You wanna get little jagged edges of potatoes on the sides. That's what makes it look like a nest. All right, 1 tray of nests done, 1 more to go. That's a lot of nests. All right, now the very last thing, I'm gonna spray the tops really lightly with just a little more cooking spray. That'll help them get nice and crisp and sizzly in the oven. All right, I'm gonna pop these into a 450-degree oven for just about 15 or 20 minutes. They're gonna start to get a little bit crisp and golden brown. Oh yeah, these look good. Starting to get nice and crisp around the edges. I smell that potato, yum. All right, now I'm gonna let these cool. This This is such a cool little dish, so cute and so delicious. All right, I'm just gonna crack an egg and drop it into each cup. All right, now I've got a lot more to do, so I better get cracking. All right, now I'm just gonna sprinkle these with salt and pepper. Ooh, these look good. Plenty of pepper. I like pepper on my eggs. All right, now these just need to go into a 400-degree oven for about 10 to 12 minutes. This is so great because you can take it to go anywhere or you can eat it at home. I'm starting out with 2 cups of quick oats, and I'll add 3/4 of a cup of sugar, and then just a few more things. A teaspoon of ground cinnamon, a teaspoon of kosher salt, 1/4 teaspoon of ground nutmeg, a teaspoon of baking powder. I've made this so much, I've almost got it all memorized. And then I'll give this a stir before I add the wet ingredients. Okay, I'll drop in an egg, and then I'm gonna measure 3/4 of a cup of milk. And usually when I bake things, I use whole milk. It just adds a little bit more richness. I've got a stick of butter. Just melted it and let it cool a little bit, and I'll pour that into the mix. Now, I usually add just a teaspoon of vanilla, but I happen to have some vanilla pods, so I'm gonna scrape out the caviar and add it instead. All right, that's all stirred together. So I've got a buttered dish. It's basically an 8 by 10. You can bake it in a 9 by 13 if you want. It comes out a little thinner, but it's still really good. All right, that looks great. Now it just needs to go into the oven. I'm gonna bake it at 350 degrees for about 30 minutes until it's just set and lightly golden. The Amish baked oatmeal is all ready, and I must say, it looks irresistible. Well, I have an idea for a Thanksgiving breakfast casserole that is so scrumptious. It has all the flavors of Thanksgiving, but you can make it the night before, which makes it very easy, and it's just the thing to eat for breakfast on Turkey Day. I started by cutting up some cinnamon raisin English muffins. This casserole has a nice savory sweet flavor. I'm gonna check what's in the skillet. I've got a mixture of diced Granny Smith apples and diced onion. I also added some fresh sage just to really up the Thanksgiving flavor. And I sauteed it until it's soft. So I'm gonna turn off the heat and just let that sit. And now I'll whip up the egg mixture. Got a bunch of eggs for the casserole, and I'll start by mixing them up a bit. And to make them a little creamy, I'll add some whole milk and half and half. Callie, by the way, is a friend of mine. She has a store right across the street from the Merc. She and her husband, Joey, are such a sweet couple. I love to make breakfast casseroles the night before Thanksgiving. It's really great to have it ready to go in the fridge when you wake up and just pop it in the oven. We don't wind up eating Thanksgiving dinner until later in the day, so it's nice to start the day with a little something to eat. Now I'm gonna go ahead and assemble the breakfast casserole. I have a buttered baking dish, and I'm gonna add half of the English muffins first. Now I've got some cooked breakfast sausage. This is sage sausage, but it would also be delicious if you used maple sausage. Scrumptious. Okay, I'm spreading that out. And then I'm gonna grab the skillet with the onions and the apples, and I'll add half of that. I use so many apples on Thanksgiving Day between this casserole, the Thanksgiving dressing, apple pie. I mean, I don't even want to think about how many apples I go through. Now I have some freshly grated white cheddar. Any cheese works. You can do sharp cheddar, you can do pepper jack, or just plain Monterey Jack. Okay, now I'm gonna do the same thing a second time. Now all that's left is the egg mixture, and I'll pour it really slowly over the top. in the fridge overnight. Those English muffins soak up all of this wonderful custard. This is a delicious casserole. I have learned the hard way through the years that if I don't have something ready for breakfast on Thanksgiving morning, my family will eat the Thanksgiving meal before any guests show up. Okay, I'm gonna cover this with plastic wrap. Now, Callie, on Thanksgiving morning, this is all you have to do. Take the casserole out of the fridge 20 minutes before cooking, remove the plastic wrap, replace it with foil, and bake it at 350 degrees for 35 minutes. Then take the foil off and cook it for another 15 minutes. When it's golden brown and slightly crisp, it's done. And all it needs is a sprinkle of chopped parsley. So I'm making the egg mixture, which is a great way to start any quiche recipe. I beat some eggs and I'm adding some salt and pepper, and then a good amount of half and half, and then sour cream. Nice pile of sour cream. And then I just need to whisk this mixture until it is completely combined. I think the magical thing about quiche is that you can serve it absolutely any time of day. I really love this puff pastry version because all you have to do is thaw the puff pastry. You don't have to make the pastry yourself. That is the egg mixture. So speaking of puff pastry, I have 2 sheets. And again, this is frozen puff pastry. And I'm just gonna lay it right into half of this baking dish. I'm gonna overlap 2 sheets. All right, I think that looks good. Just kind of bring whatever's hanging over the sides down so that it's right around the top rim of the pan. All right, so the pastry is ready. Now I'm gonna lay on a bed of cheese. This is grated pepper jack cheese. It adds just a tiny bit of spice, and it's really, really creamy. I sauteed some leaves of Swiss chard. I just took them off the stems and sauteed them in a little butter, salted them, peppered them, but you can do kale, you can do spinach, any kind of dark leafy green is perfect for this. So now this egg mixture gets poured all over the top. Emphasis on over the top. Oh gosh, I love quiche. All right, so for color and flavor, I'm gonna add some little grape tomatoes. They're cut in half. I'm gonna arrange them cut side up. I'm sorry, but tricolor cherry tomatoes just make everything look prettier. So I have this beautiful fresh dill, which is a great herb for eggy breakfast dishes. And I'm just doing a little sprinkle. You can put as little or as much as you like. So for baking, there are actually 2 stages. I'm gonna lightly cover the pan for the first stage, and it's gonna cook at 375 degrees for 20 minutes. Then I'll take the foil off and let it bake for another 20 minutes. See what this looks like in here. It sure does smell good. Oh gosh, it's so beautiful. Taking the time to arrange those tomatoes so that the cut side is up is really worth it. Now, unfortunately, it's always best to let quiche sit for 10 or 15 minutes before you slice it. So I'm gonna sit here and stare at its beauty and try to be patient. I've got some frozen hash browns and I let them thaw and I kind of broke them up and separated them. And I'm gonna mix in some melted butter and salt and pepper, very, very simple. You can see that the hash browns are pretty dry, even with the melted butter. That's because after I thawed them and broke them up, I put them in between paper towels and really squeezed out the excess water. That way the hash browns will get nice and crispy. Those are all mixed together. So now I'm gonna build the waffle maker hash browns. I've got the waffle maker preheated. It's on medium heat. I don't wanna burn the potatoes. And I'm gonna spray the waffle maker really well with non-stick cooking spray, just to give myself a fighting chance. And then I'll grab a 1/2 cup measure and see how that quantity is for each well. I think that is gonna be just right. So I'll stick the hash browns in first. then I'll get to work. I want to spread them out. You really need to work it right from the beginning and get them all distributed. Oh my gosh, I'll bet these are going to be so good. Cheese, of course. I'm going to add some cheddar. I'm just doing a nice light layer. It's probably the only time in my life I've ever added a nice light layer of cheese. And by the way, light is a relative term. Okay, I'm also going to add some meat. I've got the thin deli ham that I used in the omelet. And I want to put it pretty much where it's going to stay because this stuff is not going to move around once I shut the waffle maker. Okay, last one. And then I'll put hash browns right on top. I'm not going to stick quite as many on the top layer. Okay, I'll close the waffle maker. Oh, listen to that sizzle. Now I'm going to let them go for 15 minutes, and then we'll see where we're up to. I am so excited to see what these hash browns look like. I'm in love, absolutely in love. They smell so good. Here we go. Oh my gosh, they're so crispy and sizzly, and one is definitely not gonna be enough. I'm gonna get another one. Wow. I started with 5 pounds of red potatoes, and I just chopped them up. They don't need to be perfect. And then I'll throw them into a big bowl. I think I'm feeding, well, I don't know how many I'm feeding. I always plan on a big crowd. That way I always have enough. And then I've got 2 onions, and I just chopped them. I left them pretty big, and I'll throw those in with the potatoes. These are really hearty breakfast potatoes. They bake in the oven, but they get really sizzly and flavorful. I'm actually getting hungry myself. Then I'll mince up about 8 cloves of garlic. Gives them great flavor. Okay, now for extra yumminess, I've got a couple of bell peppers, 2 red and 2 green, but you can use whatever colors you want. Okay, got the peppers all chopped. Now I'll throw those in. I just like them to be in big, rough chunks. You don't have to meticulously dice them for this dish. Okay, now I'll add half a cup of butter, otherwise known as 1 stick, and then the same amount of olive oil. These are gonna fry in the oven, so the butter allows them to get nice color, but the oil lets them fry and get real sizzly. Okay, now I'll add a good amount of salt, a really good amount of black pepper. You know how cowboys feel about this. Good amount of seasoned salt. That adds a little saltiness, but also a few other flavors too. And then for some kick, some cayenne pepper. I add cayenne pepper to about 85% of my recipes. Okay, and then I'll just toss this around, get them all coated. I would have used a spoon, but it would take me a lot longer. I'm not afraid to dig in there, get my hands dirty. Okay, that's all mixed together. Now I've got 2 big baking sheets, and I'm just gonna spread the potatoes on each one. I'm using 2 because I don't want to crowd the potatoes. If I crowd them, they'll just steam and they won't get crispy and fried. Okay, that is a lot of potatoes, but I guarantee you they're going to be gone. Shake them out, get them into 1 layer. All right, now I'm going to start baking these at 425 degrees for about 25-30 minutes. These are going to be an awesome start to a delicious hearty breakfast. These potatoes look so good. They smell divine. Oh my gosh. Now, instead of taking 2 different baking trays out to the guys, I'm actually just gonna combine them into 1. See if I can do this without dropping any. Oh man, they are perfect. They've just got that nice golden color. The peppers and onions are kind of cooked down and have some good color on them. Oh my gosh, these are good. These are great, not just for breakfast. They're awesome for dinner next to a steak. Ooh. I'm starting with the chicken. I'm making the coating that's going on the outside, and I'm just mixing up a little milk and buttermilk. That'll come into play here in just a second, but first I'm gonna mix up the dry ingredients. So it's 1 1/4 cups of flour, half a teaspoon of seasoned salt, the same amount of paprika, freshly ground pepper, ground dried thyme, and 1/4 teaspoon of cayenne pepper. I'll just stir them all together, Then slowly drizzle in the milk and buttermilk while I mix it with a fork. This will leave little lumps that are gonna stick to the chicken and make it nice and crispy. I've got 4 chicken thighs that I've been soaking in buttermilk overnight. My mom always soaked her fried chicken the night before she fried it, and it always turned out so delicious. Now I'll just put it in the breading, and I'll sprinkle it over and just press it. I want that breading to really stick to the surface of the chicken. So these are gonna go skin side down right into the pan. Oh, and the oil is just right when it sizzles like that. Now I'll get the second 2 coated. Whenever I fry chicken, I always love to do thighs. It's my favorite cut of chicken. I'm a dark meat girl. For the first stage of cooking, I'm gonna put the lid on the pan and let them go for about 5 minutes. I'm gonna give the chicken a turn. It sure smells good so far. Really light golden brown. The lid helps it not to get too brown too fast. I'll carefully turn them over so that coating doesn't fall off. Oh, it looks so crispy and beautiful. I'll just get the lid back on, and I'm gonna let it cook for another 3 minutes or so. I'm just gonna take it out with a spatula, let the excess drip off. At this stage, it's not quite finished browning, and it's not quite finished cooking in the middle. I'm gonna put the pan into a 350-degree oven. It's just gonna take about 10 to 15 minutes to finish them off. I'm gonna whip up the dry ingredients. That starts with a cup of flour. This is just my basic go-to waffle recipe. They always turn out right. This is one thing I never wanna experiment with. I'll also add a 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder and 2 big tablespoons of sugar. Whenever I make pancakes or waffles, I always add sugar. I like for it to have a little bit of sweetness. And then just a pinch of salt, and I'll sift these together. I've got an egg cracked in the pitcher, and I'll add about 3/4 of a cup of whole milk and a nice splash of vanilla. All the good things of life. And then this just needs to get whisked together. I don't want to overmix this batter. I just be really gentle. Okay, now that's about halfway mixed together. So I'll pour in the melted butter. Melted butter in pancake or waffle batter always adds extra flavor, a little extra golden color, and definitely extra deliciousness. I'll add some beaten egg whites. This is something I love to add to my waffle batter. It gives the waffles such an amazing texture. This is just 2 egg whites that I beat until they were stiff. Whenever you add egg whites to anything, you definitely need to treat it with tender, loving care. The great thing about waffles is they don't have to be sweet. You can make savory waffles and put cheese in them. I'll do those another day. Okay, now I'll just close the waffle maker. The waffles are just gonna take about 4 to 5 minutes to cook. Chicken and waffles has to have some kind of syrup. That's what makes it so delicious. So it's pancake syrup with a little bourbon, and they get brought to a boil, then simmered until they're nice and warm. Then with the heat off, I whisked in 2 tablespoons of butter, 1 at a time, and some cayenne pepper. Now I'm gonna throw all of this together. Piece of chicken. This looks like a good one. I'll grab this beautiful syrup. Oh my gosh, syrup on fried chicken? I have one thing to say to that. Yes. Oh, I smell that bourbon too. To go with the biscuits I've got in the oven, I'm making a big batch of sausage gravy. Biscuits and gravy is a cowboy favorite. It's pretty much in their DNA. Everybody absolutely loves it. All right, I've got 2 pounds of breakfast sausage, and I just tore it into small pieces, threw it in a big skillet, and I'm just browning it up, and I'll use this to make the gravy. This gravy is so wonderful. It's really creamy and really thick, and it has little chunks of sausage all throughout. So, so good. So now I'll sprinkle in a little flour. I'll start with about 1/3 cup, and I'm just gonna make the gravy right on the top of the sausage. A lot of times when I make sausage gravy, I'll fry patties of sausage, take it out of the skillet and then use the grease to make the gravy. But I love this method because you just keep it all in the skillet. It's a lot less work. Okay, now I'll stir this in. I want the flour just to completely coat the sausage, sort of becomes one, and I'll stir it around. It's always been a little difficult for me to give an exact recipe for gravy because there's so much eyeballing that's required. I just sort of look at it, and if it seems like it needs a little more flour, I just sprinkle it in. Okay, this looks perfect. The flour has pretty much disappeared into the sausage. So I'll grab the milk. I'm using whole milk just to make it extra rich and creamy. I'm gonna start with a good 5 or 6 cups. I used quite a bit of flour, so it's gonna thicken up. Stir it around. Now I'm gonna turn up the heat a little bit and let this start bubbling away. I really predict not a drop of this is gonna be left. The gravy is gorgeously thick. It looks just perfect, so I'm gonna season it up. I'll just add a little bit of salt. I don't want to add too much until I have a chance to taste it. Plenty of black pepper. There's a lot of pepper in this meal. And then just a little bit of seasoned salt to give it extra flavor. Now I'll stir that around. It looks unbelievably wonderful. I could eat it by the spoonful. I'm making a tater tot casserole for tomorrow. It is so wonderful. It's an all-in-one main course. It's got a great shortcut ingredient, and it's make ahead. Check, check, and check. I'm gonna assemble the casserole today and bake it tomorrow. I'm just browning some breakfast sausage with some finely diced onion. I'm gonna let the sausage cook all the way through, and while it does, I'm gonna grab that shortcut ingredient. Frozen tater tots. So easy. All I need to do is get them into a buttered baking dish. This perfect layer of tater tots is gonna get topped with the brown sausage and onions. And it's fine that this is hot. It's gonna have a chance to cool down before I add the other ingredients. Once the casserole bakes, those tater tots just turn into potatoes. You would never know they were frozen. Okay, that is all the sausage. Now I'll start working on the egg mixture. This casserole has a lot of cheese, so I'm gonna grate up some cheddar and some Monterey Jack. It's probably the cheese combination that I use the most in my kitchen. Okay, that's enough cheddar. I'll start grating the pepper jack. Love pepper jack cheese, it's so creamy and I love the spice. Okay, that's it for the cheese. Get it out of here. I've got 4 eggs that I cracked into the pitcher, and I'll add a cup of milk. It's whole milk just to make the whole thing a little more rich. And speaking of rich, a little bit of half and half, just about half a cup or so. Now the sausage is really flavorful and plenty salty, but I'm gonna add just a little bit of seasoned salt, about a 1/4 teaspoon. And for some spice, a little cayenne pepper. Really simple. And then I'll whisk this together. Okay, that is nice and mixed. So I'll add some green and red bell pepper. I seeded it and pulled out the membranes, and then I diced them really fine. Okay, the last thing to add to the egg mixture is half of this cheese. The other half is gonna go on top of the casserole. I'll give it a quick stir. And then this beautiful concoction gets poured over the sausage, which is cool by now. And look at all that chunky wonderfulness. Make sure it's all even. And then the rest of this cheese goes on top. This is a cheesy, cheesy dish. Now I've just gotta cover it with foil. Stash it in the fridge overnight. And tomorrow when it comes to baking and serving, well, that's gonna be a cinch. I'll get the casserole into the oven at 350 degrees for 25 minutes. Then I'll take the foil off and bake it for another 20 minutes. Then when it's hot and bubbling, I'll get it out and onto the counter. And everyone will have a lovely, hearty helping. Oh boy, check out all the tater tots and sausagey, oniony, eggy cheesiness. Mmm, fantastic.